Okay, hi everyone. This is a nice time and a great time to have our great Brandon, Mr. Andy Fades, who was, we can say, not unfortunately, but born HIV positive. He has contracted the virus from his mother, who later died of AIDS in 1998 at the age of 26. So 20 years after his mother's death, our dear speaker Andy created the Keeping It Positive movement, in which he uses the stand-up comedy, YouTube, and social media platforms to entertain, empower, and educate people about HIV and AIDS around the world. His goal is to prevent his mother's death from happening again to anyone else by creating a forum to talk about HIV or AIDS openly without the fear of it being considered too taboo to talk about. So thank you very much for joining us, our great Andy Fate. We are happy to have you. Over to yeah.
Thank you very much, Yabaha. So I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Yasmin Farapir, the founder and president of Niceville Literacy. So thank you all for being here today. And I'll go on with the land acknowledgement. So we would like to begin today's event by acknowledging the traditional lands in which we operate, the unceded territory of the Kanakihawk, a place that has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst the nations. It is important to acknowledge the land we operate on as a part of our movement towards reconciliation with the Indigenous peoples of Canada. Several organizations acknowledge the land we operate on, thus to show respect for this land and the ancient traditional roots and relationships that are ongoing today. It allows us to be accountable to our Indigenous communities and work to reflect on how we, as uninvited settlers, benefit from lasting settler colonization and the unceded territory of the many nations. Thank you very much. And why are we here? Why are we here today? We're here to commemorate World AIDS Day, and yeah. So Leah, you want to go on?
So now's the time where we will be passing it over to our distinguished guest speaker, Andy, also known as Brandon. And over to you, Andy, if you want to start by introducing yourself and taking over the floor.
For sure. Well, thank you guys for having me. My name is Andy Feds. As they said, I was born HIV positive. My mother got it from a partner that wasn't my dad, and in turn, she passed it on to me. My doctors didn't know that HIV positive until I was about 2, and I got really, really sick. And then my nurses was like, "Oh, we should try all these tests," and everything came back negative. And then they said, "Oh, well, how about we try an HIV test?" And my mom already knew that she had HIV, but she kind of kept it secret. So she was like, "He doesn't need HIV, or he doesn't need HIV test, and why? He's a baby. Why would he need an HIV test?" And then, sure enough, came back positive. So my mom's secret was let out of the bag there, and because of my mom's denial, she did not give me my medicine. She did not take her medicine. Just for it being the 90s, when HIV was running rampant. And, we both got really, really sick. And fortunately for me, I was able to recover, but my mom's HIV turned into AIDS, which ended up, killing. So as the statement says, 20 years later, I started to do comedy in 2011. And then I kind of switched my gears around, and I was like, I feel the need to talk about HIV with my comedy. And it was weird, how you have that little small voice in the back of your head that's like, okay, you got to talk, you got to say it now. And in my mind, I'm like, why? Why do I need to talk about it? So created what?
So, Andy,
Sorry?
you mean to say that was kind of your aha moment, which happened to you, and that got you into speaking about HIV and AIDS? And what specifically inspired you to speak about this? Or like, was it your experience? Was it the people that you surrounded with? Was it the situation of the environment in Las Vegas? Was it the situation in America? Was it the pharmaceutical companies? How did yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. For me, it was a little bit of when my mom and I really, knew about my diagnosis. Biggest thing was I was told to keep it a secret from my friends, especially like when I went to preschool. How you tell little kids, "Hey, don't tell your friends what's going on with you." And as a 3-year-old, I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever. I just want to play." So I kept it a secret for a long time, only telling like family and friends. And then after 20 years after my mom passed away, I'm thinking, why do I need to keep it a secret? Like millions of people have HIV, and people need to talk about it. Like, my mom passed away because she felt the need she felt like she couldn't talk about it. So that's where the inspiration for keeping it positive came from. So I guess I can continue. I'm a little tongue-tied. So when I created Keeping It Positive, I started to, write material. It actually, a lot of it too was inspired by my wife, who back then was my girlfriend, and we were kind of into a relationship and talking and stuff, and how boyfriend and girlfriends be. So I was like, let's slow it down a little bit. I need to tell you something. So, we agreed to share each other's, backstories. So she was telling me about her brother and how her brother was killed and things like that. And I wanted to tell her, I went about telling her about how I was born HIV positive and, talked to or lost my mom to it. So her mouth just dropped and she just told me, I want you to know whatever happens, I'm going to be there for you. I'm not going to treat you any differently than, you may think. And that's when I was like, you might be the one for me. So sure enough, we got married. And when I started to do the Keeping It Positive movement, like really pushed it, I first brought it to public on Facebook. I felt like it was just time to tell the world. I don't know why. Again, I think it was that little voice. And I went on Facebook and I was like, hey, I was born HIV positive. You guys been my friends for so long and you guys didn't think that I was sick or anything like that. So this is me sharing my, I guess you could say, testimony on how you can live healthily with HIV.
Yes, and so Andy, when you shared this on social media, did you receive many others that suddenly came out to tell us all about their experiences being HIV positive, or was it your story that then inspired others to connect with you, and did you form a community? And so when you say it's the Keep It Positive movement, I think there's a pun to it. Positive in HIV positive, and then positive in being positive, the positivity, the good vibes around the movement that it is. And something that Lives for Literacy is that it's also a movement born out of this very COVID-19 pandemic. And so I think students and youth can learn from the power of positivity. And would you mind speaking about how this positivity in your life has not only allowed you to overcome your challenges, but has also inspired others around you?
So when I created it or made the Facebook status, I had a lot of friends and family say, oh my God, I never knew. And, we're going to support you. And that was very comforting. And then I was like, all right, now with that, I need to come up with some material, some comedy material. So I did a open mic at a lounge here in Vegas, and it was fine until I said, HIV, because in comedy, you got to be careful. Well, in people's minds, they think, you know, certain things should not be funny, you know, HIV, abortion, death, you know, certain things like that, rape. So when I said HIV, everybody just kind of tuned out and just was like, we're not going to listen to this guy anymore. So after I did my set, I thought, okay, that was the first time. How can I make it better? So I gradually, you know, made sure that I meticulously word my, you know, my sets and make sure that, you know, it's not offensive and, you know, sharing my life with it. And once I got the hang of it, you know, as you're saying, more and more people were coming up to me and saying, hey, I really thank you for what you're doing, because, you know, so-and-so or my mom, my aunt, my, you know, somebody has HIV and they don't know how to deal with it. Or I had some friends that I've never knew, you know, have HIV, and they were saying, I didn't know what to do next after HIV. And I'm glad that you're, you know, comforting others that's living the same thing as you.
Beautifully put, Andy. And so, have you been able to connect with people outside of America, people in like South Africa, where a huge population is HIV positive? Have you been able to connect with others in maybe other countries to share your story, especially during the pandemic when everything has sort of shifted to an online presence? So yes, please enlighten us.
Yeah, so I tell people all the time, COVID saved my career. Well, it wasn't, I wouldn't say saved it, it reinvigorated it. Because I felt as though before COVID, I was starting to get a little tired, you know, because I was doing the same places in Las Vegas. And it was just like the same people were always there hearing my jokes. So I was like, you know, with the pandemic, I wanted to make sure that, you know, I can reach more people. So I've spoken to people in Belize and Nigeria, Uganda, Singapore, Saskatchewan. I'm just trying to think. I got a whole list right here. But yeah, it's just I feel like it's been a blessing in disguise to be able to reach out to people that I've never even dreamed of talking to. You know, just last week, I had someone from Nigeria reach out to me and say, Andy, I just want you to know that I'm such a fan, and I thank you for what you're doing.
Yes, that's truly amazing, Andy, to see the power, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, the power of technology to have really connected us beyond borders. And I think that is the power of the world that we live in. But there's also a mention of digital poverty, how now there's certain populations that do not have access to internet and electronics and devices. But going back into the conversation, how has comedy and art shaped your perspective and continues to shape the perspective of the AIDS and HIV/AIDS movement?
Oh, sure. Well, I always use my hashtag, I'm Andy Feds, hashtag the first ever openly HIV positive born stand-up comedian. I have seen comedians that were not born with it, you know, talk about HIV. I've also seen comedians that does not have HIV in general, you know, talk about HIV on stage. But I felt the need to be someone born with HIV to talk about it, because, you know, a lot of people think that HIV is just, you know, through sex, you know, and when there are multiple ways of contracting the virus. So as far as like comedy and art goes, I felt that in a way, I as a teenager, I was very depressed. You know, I had the HIV thing to deal with, you know, I had family issues, things like that. And so comedy was almost therapeutic in my eyes, because this was me expressing, you know, what my life was like, you know, or what it is like living with HIV.
And so, Andy, have you been, besides being a stand-up comedian and dealing with a wide variety of audiences, young and old, smart, and how to put it, but what have you noticed across the population or across the different nationalities, ethnicities? What have you noticed that brings these people together? Is it comedy, or is it the genuine desire to learn about HIV and AIDS, or is it just like wanting to have a fun time? Because the members or us at Lives for Literacy were really interested in hearing your story, because I think you took a very unique perspective instead of having like a very boring lecture from a professor or a webinar about HIV and AIDS. We saw that you were a comedian and you brought a very different touch and perspective to the whole World AIDS Day. And I think for youth that are coming onto the platform and that are learning about HIV and AIDS, learning about it from a different perspective, from somebody who adds in a bit of comedy, a bit of humor, really makes a difference. So how did this come about? Like, what are the type of people that you see across the perspective that unites us?
I think the biggest thing that unites people is comedy. Just everybody laughs. Everybody has a sense of humor. So I thought it would be a unique way, as you said. There are always lectures, or people talking about, so and so died, and it's typically sad, to hear about how somebody died about HIV. So I try to switch it up and teach. My thing about my Keep It in Positive movement is that I have the 3 E's, which is I try to educate, empower, and entertain people about HIV. So I'm trying to make it so that it's interesting. It's quick jokes, and yet you forget that, I'm learning. I'm learning about what HIV is.
Exactly. And with Lives for Literacy as well, a core mission, or the motto, has been empowering humans. And so I think we both have that in common with the empowerment. And have you noticed that when you speak to populations, do they confuse AIDS with HIV?
All the time.
And so, Andy, how would you, to our audience, to our youth that are in the audience, how would you distinguish or give them a quick way of understanding the difference between HIV and AIDS?
Ooh, excuse me. Never eat before an interview. Got a little gas. So to distinguish it was HIV is like the very first step, or I can say HIV is a virus that can be contracted, and the virus attacks your immune system, making you prone to like different illnesses. AIDS is like the third step of HIV. So that's when, the HIV virus goes untreated and your body breaks down, and now you're even more susceptible to, other illnesses, diseases, cancer, pneumonia, things like that.
Yes, and so I hope our audience in the that I hear has understood the very kind explanation by Andy. And so, Andy, have you been able to travel abroad to, say, South Africa or Nigeria or Congo, where AIDS predominantly began, like the origins of HIV and AIDS? Have you been able to travel before the COVID-19 pandemic to see the population?
Not yet. I'm waiting on, as I call her, Auntie Rona, to leave the world. So we can. I'm ready. As I said, Keeping It Positive movement really expanded after the pandemic took over, and after I've been able to reach so many countries, a lot of people invited me to come, to their country and speak. So once Auntie Rona leaves, I'm definitely trying to, go ahead and travel,
Yes, of course. I think we need more people like you to add this touch of comedy to particularly very important subjects, especially in the field of medicine. And so if you have any words of wisdom to youth about being better advocates for HIV and AIDS, what are they? And how do you envision the world in the next 20 years with HIV and AIDS?
I think to anybody that wants to be an advocate or is an advocate, the biggest thing is to know that you're not doing this by yourself. You have an entire community that will back you up. You got tons of resources. I have a few Facebook support groups, that I reach out to every now and then, or even just friends that I met online, that have said, hey, I'm HIV positive, I love what you do, and then I connected with them, and then I became friends. Like, so it's a world that I've just recently got into myself. You know, Keeping It Positive movement just started 2017, and before that, I did not speak about my status. You know, so and this world is very welcoming from what I've experienced.
Yes, of course. And so, Andy, is there anything that you think stands as a difference that particularly we as youth can do? Could we probably advocate through writing? Could we advocate through speaking at schools? Could we host comedy sessions? How do you think that the best way today in this world of pandemic, when we all have Zoom fatigue, how should we go about this? Because AIDS, and especially the topic of HIV and AIDS, is not a subject that those particularly not interested in medicine or the field would be willing to.
I wouldn't say there's necessarily one way of doing it, but I would think wherever the environment is, you know, if you happen to be like, let's say, I wouldn't say a bar. I don't know why that first came to my head. But say like at a social gathering, you know, find a way to incorporate that into, you know, conversations. Say, hey, did you know World AIDS Day or HIV Awareness Month is this month? And bam, go around, you know, that conversation. You know, the biggest thing is to try to, you know, push the awareness, but don't push it onto people, if that makes any sense. You know, it's kind of going with the flow type of thing.
Yes, of course. And so we have a question from one of our amazing volunteers,
Sure.
who's Stanley from Haiti, and he's asking about, he says there is, yes, Stanley, do you want to ask your question or should I ask your question? I think you should go ahead. Stanley?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, guys?
I sure can.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I just wanted to ask a question. Like, there's a lot of misunderstanding. I don't know if there is a lot of misunderstanding where you are, but here in Haiti, there's a lot of misunderstanding about HIV, and people always tend to be very discriminate when they see people who have HIV. So how do you cope with that? Have you ever been discriminated by people who, when you talk about HIV, and how do you deal with that?
I wouldn't say I was discriminated, but not in a negative sense. You know, I think it was just a little bit of the ignorance factor. I remember walking, as you may know, the Vegas is famous for the Las Vegas Strip, and it's a 3 mile, 3 mile blocks of, just hotels and casinos. And so me and my wife, we were walking down the strip, and, you know, I had my newspaper, you might be able to see behind me. And then I had my Keeping It Positive shirt that you can find on andyfadscomedy.com. little plug there. So the guy reads my shirt and he says, "Oh, what's that say? Straight out of what?" And I go, "Stigma." And he was like, "Well, what that means?" And I told him, you know, I'm a comedian that talks about HIV and AIDS or my life with it. And he goes, "Oh," and he looks at my wife, and this is your girl? Yeah. Am I not supposed to have a girl? And he goes, "Oh, and you're not sick?" "No." "Am I supposed to be sick?" Oh, this is before Corona, so I was like, "Am I asymptomatic or anything like that?" So I've had things like that happen, and yeah, and you know, some people, as I mentioned, some people do think, you know, if I tell them I'm HIV positive, they think that I'm gay, you know, or some people might think that, you know, I'm a drug user. I don't do drugs. So, you know, to deal with it, I just, you know, tell them, hey, that's not what HIV is. It's not all that HIV is. A lot of people were born with it. A lot of people got a bad blood transfusion from it. A lot of people, you know, got it from their moms, like me, you know, so.
And so, Andy, my next question to you is that the population of sub-Saharan Africa is expected to double in the next 10 years. And the prevalence of HIV, almost 82% of mothers have their children born up with HIV positive. So how do we tackle the population or the youth in these sub-Saharan African countries to make them aware of what HIV and AIDS is, and how do we inspire them with safe prevention methods, and keep them or welcome them into the Keep It Positive movement?
I think that the biggest thing of the spread of HIV is lack of knowledge, and in a lot of cases, in impoverished areas, like I grew up in Chicago, in like one of the worst neighborhoods in Chicago, and people don't have those resources. People don't have, health facilities that can teach them these things, out to the public. And so I think the biggest thing is to help some of these places develop resources. If we as people can start a health drive or something like that, in these areas. We don't necessarily need $1 billion worth of funding to teach people.
Yes, definitely. And so I'm not sure if you're aware, but you probably know about the Mexico City policy, or the Global Gag Rule, which President Donald Trump had reinstated in January of 2017. And what this does is that it takes away from the U.S. health funding that is supposed to go to sub-Saharan African countries, so that the mothers and children in Africa get the drugs and the treatment that they need. So have you been part of policy, or had the occasion to be speaking to our Congress members in the U.S. about HIV and AIDS and what they can do to assure or ensure that history does not repeat itself?
I have not, but I'm just now learning about this. So, that actually might be something along the lines of what my next goal might be.
Yes, you should definitely check out the Global Gag Rule, because it has definitely increased the number of unsafe abortions that happen not only in America, but also abroad internationally. But we also have another question from our executive member. Yabaha, do you want to take the floor?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. As she said, I'm co-director of International Affairs and also Vice President External at Lives for Literacy. So my question is about your future plan. Like, you have this Keep It Positive movement. If you talk about keeping something, that means you are thinking about also the future. So what's your plan to reach people in the future? Like, how are you planning to expand your movement? Yeah, if I should say so.
Oh yeah, definitely. I am definitely, actually, I haven't told you guys this. I know everybody's in different countries, but I'm auditioning for America's Got Talent on my birthday on the 13th. And so I was telling my wife that, the biggest thing that I want to do is reach a national level, because, granted, I'm already, taking Keeping It Positive Global. I already mentioned the countries, but I feel like if I can take HIV awareness to Hollywood, that's a big, step as far as, getting the word out there. So my biggest thing is always to try to expand, and how I can expand that. Maybe I'll be reaching, more organizations outside of the US, or, maybe like you said, reach out to people in Congress of, the US and different countries,
Yes, of course. That makes us so happy and so privileged to be hosting you, Andy, because your story is truly inspirational, and it really means a lot for you to be here on our platform to share everything, your entire story, your perspective, your hope that you have for this world. And so I'm aware that there's approximately 2 foundations that you support or you endorse. And what could you tell us about those foundations and what work they do?
Sure. The first foundation that I've supported was the Junior Council. That's at Lurie's Children's Hospital of Chicago. And that hospital was the actual hospital that saved my life. that's where I transferred to that hospital when I was 2 years old, and they got me on a good HIV regimen, or treatment. So with the junior council, they started that program up, and it's basically a mentorship program. So they'll have like young professional workers, mentoring patients, HIV patients at the hospital. And so they, raise monies to provide treatment for families at the hospital that are affected by HIV and AIDS. So I definitely, because I was a part of that mentorship program as a mentee, I knew I wanted to, help out with that. Then the second one is actually the Keep a Child Alive Foundation, and that is created by one of my all-time favorites, Alicia Keys. And so with them, they help families affected by HIV and AIDS in Africa and India. And we are actually trying to get a show going on the 19th. It's still tentative at this moment. It's going to be a virtual variety fundraiser show. So we're trying to get that going to help, continue their goal of funding families.
Definitely, that's really beautiful. And so, Andy, how has the COVID-19 pandemic kind of shaped or affected AIDS worldwide in terms of like treatment methods, in terms of like the public health guidelines, in terms of like funding? How has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted HIV and AIDS?
For sure. I think now people are understanding that viruses are real. HIV, people are still talking about, COVID, and now they think that HIV disappeared, but it's like, no, people are still out here living with it. So I think now people are, the world is getting a little bit more serious on, viruses and healthcare and pandemics and things like that, because in my eyes, the HIV pandemic never ended. We just got it contained. I mean, 35 million people still have HIV. So if that number was like 12, then I'd say, okay, the pandemic's done. But 35 million, that's a large number.
Yes, of course. And so, Andy, you are an inspiration for so many, and I'm pretty sure as you continue with the Keep It Positive movement, as you continue to share your story, you will continuously inspire millions around the world, not only in America, but abroad and beyond borders. And it is so important for the HIV and AIDS entire story. But we want to know, who is your inspiration? Who are the people that inspired you? Was it Michael Jackson, or was it advocates in the past? Where did you draw your inspiration, both for HIV and AIDS and for comedy? And I know 100% your mom was a huge source of inspiration. Mm-hmm. So do enlighten us, besides your mom and besides comedy, like who are your other inspirations in this world?
For sure. So as I mentioned, Alicia Keys was a huge inspiration. She's the reason I learned piano. And then when she created Keep a Child Alive, I was like, what? A celebrity that cares about people with HIV? What? So that really kind of made me fall in love with her, So her, I definitely credit Elton John, who's a huge HIV advocate. Lady Gaga is another one. Who else? Hydea Broadbent. She actually lives out here in Vegas, and I don't know if you guys know her, but she was on like the Oprah Winfrey Show and worked with Magic Johnson, and she's like global with the HIV. So she's a huge inspiration. I actually just met her this year. And as far as comedy goes, Jamie Foxx was a big influence on me. He had a show or a special called I Think I Need Security. And that's when he was just playing the piano and doing comedy. And I was like drawn to the screen, Kevin Hart was another one, because his special, what is it? Laugh at My Pain. In college, my friend Larry and I, we was watching Laugh at My Pain, and we was like, we can do this. This guy's funny and we're funny too. So why not? So we created our own comedy club, and that's where my love of comedy came from.
Okay, wow. And Andy, when was the first time ever that you had your first stand-up comedy show? Was it in Las Vegas? Was it TV?
No, the first comedy show that I had was actually in a little town south of Chicago called Evergreen Park, Illinois. And it was at my college, my first college. And we had our first stand-up show after watching Kevin Hart. And I remember I had a guy running up and down the aisles laughing. And I was like, you know what? I think I found my passion here.
That's really wonderful. And so, Andy, have you noticed, besides the stand-up comedy, have you noticed how art has shaped HIV and AIDS? Because we have a lot of artists, and even within the audience, even within Lives for Literacy. So have you seen how art and comedy kind of have something in common in terms of like expression, self-expression? Yeah,
definitely. I've seen art, I've seen music done, I've seen dancing done. I think having multiple platforms showcasing HIV awareness is a wonderful thing, because when people think HIV, they think of, high school health class or growing up and seeing, seminars, and they're hour long, and it's like an old man and he's like half dead, yes. So people, it's good to see multiple, platforms showing this, because now people are understanding, that there are different ways of learning HIV, definitely. Learning, HIV/AIDS.
Yes, of course. And so, Andy, why don't you put on for us a few skits or a few
sure.
jokes? Over to you.
Okay, so I'll do the one that I'm going to do for my birthday for America's Got Talent. So, and a little bit more. So, first of all, my name is Andy Feds, aka the first ever openly HIV positive born stand-up comedian. And with my Keeping It Positive movement, I'm trying to teach people what life is like living with HIV and AIDS, because people still think that it's taboo to talk about. Before I continue, can I have microphones on, just because a comedian kind of likes hearing reactions. I should have started
microphones on.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good enough. So
unmuting.
I'll continue. So I'm trying to teach people what life is like with HIV and AIDS, because people still think that it's taboo to talk about. People still think that it's scary to talk about, and it's not as scary as it used to be. Because back in my day, Naked and Afraid wasn't a TV show. It was the women I brought home. Secondly, I'm trying to teach people that growing up dating was hard, being HIV positive. And I remember telling people, or I think that's why I became a stand-up comedian, because I wanted to distract the ladies from the fact that I had HIV. And I remember I used to tell them all the time that dating an HIV positive comedian is like adopting a stray dog. It's like, I'm cute. You see me on a few flyers in your neighborhood, and you probably take me to the doctors to see if I had all my shots.
That's amazing, Andy.
Also, nice. I'm trying to break stigmas. I've been married for 3 years to a woman, and me and my wife, we meshed well together. We have a lot of similarities. The woman before her, my ex, we didn't. We had way too many differences between each other. For instance, I'm a person that likes dogs. She's a person that likes cats. I'm a person that likes the warm weather. She's a person that likes the cold weather. I'm a Sagittarius. She was a cheater. And when we broke up, it was a little bit of a bad breakup. She told me that she couldn't see herself dating somebody that was HIV positive. I mean, I had to be okay with that, but it bothered me a little bit. It's okay because karma struck. The very next day, she got hit by a car. Oh. I know, because I looked in my rearview mirror. I'm kidding. I had to pay the Uber driver to do it. Only kidding. And then also, the reason I do keep it positive is because, as I mentioned, my mom passed away from AIDS in 1998. And, I always hated telling people that I lost my mom, because they always say weird things to you when they find out that you lost a loved one. They'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, she's no longer in pain. Oh, she's in a better place." I'm like, she's in a better place. Me and my mom, we were born and raised in the scary part of Chicago called Chicago. And in Chicago, she was paying about $900 a month for rent. Now, excuse my Christian school education, but they told me God got a mansion in heaven. So listen to this: pearly white gates, streets of gold. Ain't no, there's no way God's charging less than $2,500 a month for rent. You understand me? My mama is homeless in heaven. That's what I'm trying to say. That's all I have for you guys.
That's
Thank
amazing.
you so much. Yeah,
Thank you so much for all the laughs. Really, it's great.
Thank you.
And we have one more question from Yabaha. Yabaha, do you want to ask the question?
Yeah, one question, but that was great. Mostly a part of the girl. Yeah, you got the girl. That's great.
Thank you.
My question is, are you planning to make a movie out of your story?
I actually am. I've been toying around with that idea a lot. I'm also working on like a sitcom type of thing. So yeah, I'm just trying to flesh out like what parts of my life story that I want to add in there. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking about it.
Okay, that's nice. That's nice.
So Andy, if there's a particular story or something that you really have to include in the movie that you create about your life, what would it be?
Well, with me being a comedian, I would definitely add comedy aspects to it. So as a kid, and this is terrible for me to admit now as an adult, but as a kid, I've always hated taking medicine, especially I didn't know how to swallow pills at the time, so they'll pills and mix it in, juices and whatever. So I used to always be at my cousin's house all the time, and they would always look at my medicine. They'll go, "Oh, can I have some?" And I'll go, "Right here." I don't want it. So I definitely include that into it.
That's amazing. And so, Andy, is there anything you would like to tell us, Lives for Literacy, and the wonderful students from all over the world that have come in to listen to you? We've had some of them wake up at 2:30 a.m. in the morning and 3:30 a.m. in the morning just so that they could have this opportunity to listen to you speak.
Wow.
And they're going to be taking away a lot of important messages from this conversation and from your laughter and your jokes that you've given us to smile and to reflect on. So is there anything that you would like to tell them?
Just for those that are living with HIV, just know that it's not a death sentence anymore. Like, as long as you take care of yourself, you're going to live longer than a lot of people, And then the second one is that for Lives for Literacy, thank you guys for what you guys are doing for the HIV community. It's just an honor to have people care so much about other people, and I'm not even talking about HIV, but just caring for other people in general, so please continue to, care for other people, be kind to other people, you never know what people are going through.
That is very true, Andy. And I think that's the power of Lives for Literacy, is that we've started off with the foundational base of literacy, which we believe is truly an ability to empower people, because when you have the literacy to read and write and to understand what you are seeing and reading, you open up your doors to a world of freedoms. And for so many around the world, they do not have the same opportunities as us in the audience are here having. And so we just want to thank you from the sincerely bottom of our hearts for coming on to Lives for Literacy, onto this platform, speaking about HIV and AIDS and your experience, because you truly are making a difference each and every day. So continue keeping it positive and making the difference with your movement.
Thank you guys. And feel free to follow me on Instagram. I'm Andy Feds Comedy.
Yes, of course. And we're not letting you go till we take a picture. So
okay.
Picture time.
See,
so
had I known, I wouldn't have had my hair looking so nappy.
No, you look great.
Oh, your style is very nice.
Wait a minute.
Oh, your style is very nice. That's why you got the girl.
I tell people all the time, my hair is my hair is as nappy as I have more naps than a coma patient.
Okay, so
so you should tell us, and then
okay,
want to switch on the camera.
Okay, so I'm going to pause the recording.
Okay, so can I make a request too with the pictures?
Yes, of course.
So I have a signature smile, all right, and it's called the Fed smile. And that's when you turn your head this way and show all your teeth. Can I have everybody take a picture of the Andy Fed smile? Just like that,
Okay,
Yabaha.
we have to turn one side and we show
So
the teeth,
either
right?
side, it doesn't matter. So it's just,
Okay,
then you got to open your mouth.
okay. So, Leah, you should tell us, like,
Okay, wait, I'm
what you are
trying to.
reading.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Yeah, we have to take the Andy smile.
Okay, I'm gonna pause the recording.
Thank you so much.
So thank you once again, Andy, for coming on and for speaking to us and for. I'm going to pass it over to our Vice President Arman to say.
Sure.
Arman, over to you.
Sorry, my internet's being a little bit weird, but we want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I think we were all really inspired by what you had to say. And also your comedy was really great. So we just wanted to thank you for taking time out of the middle of your day to speak with us.
Thank you guys. So yeah, thank you. I'll give it up for yourselves because you guys are making an impact on other people as well.